light up your miniatures like a pro? In this video, I'll show you 2 easy methods to wire miniature lights: soldering for a clean, durable connection, and heat shrink tubing over wrapped wires for a quick, no-solder solution. Check the timestamps in the description or to jump ahead to what
Today
you need.
we're going to build the 3D model lamp that you can buy on my shop from Nook Miniatures, and this is a 3D print that you can either buy the blank of or you can print it out yourself. There's 2 different options to buy in my shop. So that's the lampshade, and then there's also this ceiling cap. This particular one has a hole straight through the center so that we can wire this up and put it through whatever miniature scene or dollhouse room you've got. Some other supplies you're going to need today are some heat shrink tubing. The smallest you can find is about 1 millimeter. I'll link everything in the description so you can find all of the supplies that I'm using in this video. And then you're going to want a 3-volt battery pack. If you're using that for your power source, you could also wire up to have a plug-in, but I'm using this 3-volt battery pack that uses a couple of AA batteries. Also nice to have are some clippers or even some wire strippers if you've got them, but they aren't necessary. You could use scissors as well. And then of course a heat gun, or you could use a candle flame if you've got that and you're comfortable taking the heat shrink tubing over a candle flame. That would work as well. I'm going to use this heat gun today. So that's everything that we should need to go ahead and build this lamp. Let's get started. The first step is we're going to thread the LED through the stem of the light. So I'm just going to work both of those right through the other side. And really any LED you have, this one's really tiny, but I'm fine with it. And it's going to stay. It's probably the smallest one that I have, and it's going to stay. But if you've got one that's even tinier, you might need to create something to help it stay captured right there and not pull. But honestly, I don't think you're going to run into any trouble because you probably wouldn't want a smaller LED than this, or it's not going to be bright enough. Okay, so now we've got that through, and what I'm going to do first is figure out the length that I want with the heat shrink tubing for this wiring. Now this wiring is probably going to go a little bit longer than I actually want, but that's okay because I can just bend off where I want it to stop as I put it into the ceiling cap. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to get the length that I want exposed of the heat shrink tubing, and this is going to be what looks like the wire coming out of the lamp. So I'm going to go with probably about this much. So I'm just going to cut with my clippers just a little bit. And then thread it over the 2 ends of the LED. And don't worry about the letters. We're going to cover that in a second. But first, I'm going to get this shrunk up. And it does need to be where you want it to shrink on the wires, because once it's shrunk, it's done. So let's go ahead and hit it with some heat. There you go. You can see it kind of start shrinking. I just want to get it as tight as I can. Okay, that is about as snug as I can get it. So it's okay if it moves a little bit, like right there. The stem of this lamp is small enough that you can start to work it down. Small enough, big enough that you can start to work that down in there. And you could even put on a little bit of glue, but I really don't think it's going to be necessary. And then you can sort of straighten it out. You can even roll it. Sometimes rolling the wires helps a little bit too. And just sort of smooth it out. The next part is attaching it to the ceiling cap. So you're just going to thread, again, the little LED ends right through the ceiling cap. And this is the part that you'll glue, or however you're attaching it, to your miniature scene ceiling. So it's smooth, and those ends of your wire can come right through. Again, you can use different LEDs, so whatever length works for you is fine. And then just sort of, this cap has just enough opening on it that it fits right over the heat shrink tubing. So you can see I've slid, if you can see that, all the way through. And so if I wanted to adjust the length of this a little bit, it's snug enough that it doesn't like pull apart easily, but just enough that you can manipulate it and make it work the way that you want. Okay, so now we've got basically the whole assembly part done, and it's time to now wire up these ends to our power source. One thing I like to do before I finish or begin wiring is just to make sure that I know the connections from whatever LED that I'm using are going to connect to the right lines of my power source. So this one gives me a pretty good indicator. There's sort of a copper colored wire and then a silver colored wire, and the ends are bare, but these are coated. Now I'm pretty sure that the red is going to connect to the copper colored wire, and the black is going to connect to the silver colored wire. I'm going to use a couple of batteries and turn this on really quick, but as I'm actually wiring, I'll go ahead and shut those off. But for now, let's take a look and make sure that our LED is actually working before we go through and heat shrink everything together. See? So red to the copper for this one and black to the silver for this one. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take out the batteries, and we'll get started wiring this up. So this is where some wire strippers come really handy. They just make the job easier. There's different gauges here depending on this type of wire or size of wire that they're going to cut, but you're not actually cutting the wire. All you're doing is just stripping off some of this plastic tubing, holding it with a firm grip, and then just pulling it away. So now I've got a lot of wire stripped and ready to connect to an end point. So before I do that, because I'm not going to solder these together, I'm going to use heat shrink tubing. I want to cut a couple small lengths of the same heat shrink tubing that I used earlier. That will be plenty. I'm going to get a couple of those ready to go, and you're going to want to put this over either end, either the LED or the power source wire. Just try and slide it over all of the little wires. A little bit easier if you give it a twist. Okay, I'm going to do the same for the red. So now those are ready to go and ready for me to slide over once I've got these connections made. So just sort of wrap it around and create as tight of a connection as I possibly can. Connection one done. Let's do the second one. So I could give myself a little bit more. Let's do it. Just to see it in action again. We learned it was the 20 to 22 gauge. Just a little squeeze and pull. Really easy. So much easier than a scissor, but if that is all that you have, or something like these clippers, doesn't really matter. You're just trying to get the LED end to have really good contact with the power source wire. Okay, and slide that all the way up. Okay, so we've got 2 good connection points. I can move this up or keep it where it is. Okay, let's see. Ta-da! And we're going to cover it with some Sharpie. I have found that this works really great. If you've got black acrylic paint or something like that, that works too. It's just super fast and I appreciate that. And I think it gives it really good coverage and sort of a uniform look. And I think it does go well with the look of the black matte 3D print, just raw. But overall, that's it. It's a great little lamp. You can finish it and make it your own. You can use it just as is. You can wire it up with these LEDs, or if you've got another one that will thread through that size heat shrink tubing, it will fit inside of the stem and the ceiling cap